Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode. I have been chatting off air to our guest and so excited to get into the studio to have a chat with Lizzie Williamson today. And I've been grinning so much, my cheeks are actually starting to sort of feel a bit fatigued. So I love Lizzie's work. I'm so excited to introduce you to her if you don't already know her work. But before we say hello to Lizzie, I wanted to paint a bit of a picture for you. And I want you to be thinking about how your days or your work days in particular unfold in relation to what I'm about to say. Okie doke, here we go. So, many people will get up in the morning, will sit for breakfast, will sit in the car or on the train on the way to work, or will sit all day at their desk, either at home or at their workplace. Now, we've got a break for lunch. I work for myself, so I have the joy of getting up and doing a load of washing every now and again if I want to, or playing with the dog, and I have a lot of flexibility. But a lot of people are glued to their chairs during their work day, will commute home by sitting, unless you're not lucky enough, I suppose, or should I say now unlucky enough to get a seat on the train if you're using public transport, sitting for dinner, perhaps sitting on the couch, sleep and repeat. Now, in amongst all of that, we're all up, we're all about, we're doing things. But for many, the day unfolds regularly like that, with lots of time with bottoms on seats. And we're not meant to be sedentary beings. We're really not. And not moving regularly is taking its toll on our health, our physical health and our mental health. And today's guest, Lizzie Williamson, is on a mission to change that, and her mission is well underway. She has already had hundreds of thousands of people moving regularly and inspire them to keep that movement going long after they've been together in the same room. She's the founder and author of 2 Minute Moves, a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, a fitness presenter and a certified PT. If you're lucky, you'll see Lizzie on stage at a conference or at an event, getting everybody up and about and having a blast doing it. She's energised hundreds of thousands of people at events featuring, and I never thought I'd get to say this name on my podcast, maybe a guest one day, you never ever know, President Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Ariana Huffington and the Dalai Lama. She's recently published an incredibly inspiring book called The Active Workday Advantage, which is on my desk right now. Unlock your most energised, engaged and happy self at work. And I was just telling Lizzie, I couldn't put it down. I read it all in a night, and it is no mean feat to do that. It's quite a long book, so I probably didn't get the sleep I needed to recharge that night, but I was very inspired. So, Lizzie, welcome. Thank you for being so patient while I rambled on and introduced you.
Oh, Jodi, I would listen to you all day, and from one woman on a mission to another, I am so happy to be here with you having this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Lizzie. Oh, look, listeners will know, and I know you're a listener to the podcast as well, that I am so passionate about exercise, but I've even realised as someone who's been a lifelong exerciser that I'm not doing enough despite 3 CrossFit a week and a basketball game, because it's not so much about they're big wins, absolutely. But tell us about your mission, because I know and love your work, but not everybody has met you before. So tell us a bit more about you and kind of why you do the work you do.
They're so amazing, the things that you're doing, right? Going out and playing basketball and doing your exercise classes, all those things are fantastic. But so often what I find for myself and for so many other people that I speak to is that on those days where you don't have that certain amount of time that you think exercise and movement has to look like, you can't get to that certain location, you can't get the certain intensity because you're feeling tired, you don't have the energy, you're feeling anxious, whatever it is. If it can't look like the way that we think exercise has to look like, then what do so many of us do? Nothing. And I discovered this the hard way in myself 15 years ago when I had postnatal depression, and something that had always been so easy for me, which was getting moving. I'd been a professional dancer. I'd danced my whole life. It was the thing that brought me so much joy. It was no problem. I could just go do it. I found myself in this situation where for some reason I could not get myself to do it. It felt so impossible, so hard. And it was at this time, quite by accident, after I had gone and seen my doctor and talked to her about what was happening and her talking to me about what I could be doing. It was at this time where I started to do just a couple of minutes of movement at my kitchen bench and pretending it was my ballet bar. And I would do a couple of pliés, and I couldn't bring myself to do very much at all at the time. It was really, really hard. Don't get me wrong, even just one plie the first time I did it was not easy at all. But I think that moment from seeing my doctor really propelled me into taking some action. And even though I thought that action was going to be starting to do these big, 30-minute home workouts at home, and all I could get myself to do was a couple of minutes. And I remember, my head was like, oh, that's a pointless amount of time. There's no point in doing that. But there was something about that little moment that I would get this tiny, faint little feeling of achievement, that I'd done something for myself rather than beating myself up for all the things that I was doing wrong as a mum at the time, what I felt. And that little feeling of achievement and hope then brought me back to do these little moves at my kitchen bench the next day and the next. And it was so small. And over time, it created this ripple effect. And I started to move a bit more. I got a lot more professional help, started to talk to people, started to share this idea that take this little tiny moment to move if you can't get yourself out there doing the big exercise sessions for whatever reason an obstacle is getting in your way. And that's where all this grew for me. I started to see that this powerful thing that was exercise was hard.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. So how could I help to make it easier for people? Because it is such an incredible tool for us to be using in both our work days and beyond.
It is, and I love that you've done exactly what human beings need, which is you've broken it down to the simplest kind of piece, in that it's just a little bit often. And then we can build on that. You started with those 2 pliés in the kitchen. And when I hear you talk about that, Lizzie, and that it was 15 years ago, you and I were both suffering terribly with postnatal depression 15 years ago. Can I ask what month your child was born, your 15-year-old?
This was actually my second daughter. So she was born in June.
She was
born. So I had a toddler and a baby, and it was when I had my second baby is when I was at my darkest.
Yeah. So I understand what it's like to be in that place, and the difficulty and the mountain that you must have felt you had to move to just start. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because when you're really in a very dark place and life is everything's tough with a toddler and a baby and 2 under 2, I think you had, was that right? Yes. It's really difficult, and lots of mums out there and dads who've been at home with their littlies will understand. It's if you haven't done it, it's hard to describe what it's like, and you lose so much of yourself. We shouldn't, but we tend to, because we're just so consumed by what we're doing. So the day that you did that, the day that you went from, I haven't been doing anything for myself, how did it unfold? So listeners who are sort of thinking, oh, I feel the same, I feel like I'm in a hole, or I haven't done anything in so long and my body's changed and I don't feel like I can do much at all. Tell us about how you sort of went from feeling so flat and just so depressed to being able to do something new and different for yourself. What sort of thinking was going on for you?
I remember after I had come home from seeing my doctor, and I remember so clearly sitting there on the edge of my bed And knew I didn't have long until all my family was going to charge through the door. They'd been out. And I sat there and I thought, I have got to dig really, really deep right now, because I realized that my whole family was starting to fall apart around me. And that moment of digging deep and going down to see if I could find some little bit of courage or grit or strength or something to take some kind of action, because I felt at a real crossroads. I was very, very dark and having some very dark thoughts. And that was the moment that I said to myself, just start moving. Find a way to move. It came to me like that. I could almost see it in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's when I was propelled to go and start, hands on that kitchen bench, got myself to do that first small step, which there's something about that first step that can feel so hard.
Yes. I was chatting to Craig Harper recently, and even in a presentation the other day, well, Craig and I were talking a lot about, Dr. Libby puts it beautifully, why do we do what we do when we know what we know? Or it could be, why don't we do what we know we need to do when we know what we know? And we're talking about that getting started, and Craig talked about sort of pushing a stationary car, this idea that it's hardest at first, like you say, it's that first step. And the beautiful thing about it is that first step is one of many, isn't it? And talk to us about what difference that started to make for you, and how you sort of started to make that a regular part of your day. I want to sort of lead up to how you've made this a worldwide phenomenon, which is pretty extraordinary. How did you had that first step towards a couple of pliés at the bench? Where did things go from there, and how did you sort of start to build that momentum for yourself?
I started very slowly to realize, because these little moments were starting to feel quite good. I remember lying in bed at night, and normally I would list off, all the things I hadn't done right as a mum, and I hadn't made the beautiful pureed organic vegetables, and wasn't teaching my toddler her ABCs and all that kind of stuff. And in amongst this negative voice, I had this voice saying, yes, but you did that one thing. Yeah. You did those pliés at your kitchen bench, and then you did those push-ups at your kitchen bench when you were waiting for the kettle to boil. You did a couple of squats when you were hanging out the washing. And I started to celebrate, I guess, looking back. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but I was celebrating those little things that I was doing. And I realized that I was really stuck in this mindset, well, quite a few mindsets actually. One, that the little things that we do don't really count, that it has to be the big things.
Yeah.
That I had all these rules about what exercise had to look like, and I was so stuck in this all or nothing mindset that if I couldn't just walk out the door like I used to be able to do before I had kids and go to a gym class, if I wasn't able to do that certain intense gym session that I used to do because I'd get certain results in my body, then there was no point. I just did nothing. It's this all or nothing mindset. And when I started to talk to people, I realized it wasn't just me stuck in that mindset and had all these rules around exercise. So many of us had that all or nothing mentality. And so I started there was no social media then, so I started to film little videos of me doing these little moves at my kitchen bench or somewhere around the house. And if heard of a friend, and she was struggling with her mental health, so I'd send it to her as just a little piece of the pie in maybe what she could do to help her in her journey. And then I heard of someone else, I'd send them a video, and another person, and then social media came to be, and that's how this all started to roll. I just started to share it and wrote the book and so on.
Yes, and it happens so naturally when it's something that you've had the experience. And so many people that I chat to, and it's been said a few different ways. Philly Ballette said, my mess is my message, and somebody else said, oh, research is me search. And
Yes.
and that we make our work from our wounds, these ideas that, and I think that it lands differently with people when they're hearing and learning and being inspired by someone who has been on the other side. It's been on the side where you were, you'd been an active person, like you said, you'd been a professional dancer, and I so want to ask about that too. But to sort of be sort of sedentary and sort of stationary or have this complete lack of momentum, so starting from the beginning and the ideas that you share, what I especially love about them is that they're obviously very practical, and they're about getting something done in a short period of time and maximising the opportunities that we've got, like when the kettle's boiling, like when if you're reheating something in the microwave, or even on the phone. There's if you are working from home, or you're not even working, not everyone's working, and so and that idea that. And I used to have that sort of thinking too until years ago, in a sort of a former life as an exercise physiologist, I started to understand the cumulative health benefits of small amounts of exercise. I'd love you to talk to us about, let's really debunk that myth about a little regularly isn't enough. It's got to be a 60-minute class and I've got to sweat or just pass out or vomit. Let's really debunk that myth. So tell us, what do we know as a society about the cumulative benefits of regular small amounts of exercise?
We know that even if you are doing that gym session in your week one morning, or maybe going for that walk, and then you are still spending the majority of your day sedentary, then that gym session, unfortunately, it's not enough to counteract the negative impact that comes from these hours of sedentary sitting. So you can think about your body when it is stuck in that same position for hours and hours, or perhaps you were doing some kind of movement in your day that's sort of some sort of regular movement. Perhaps you got a child on your one hip for lots of the day, or even if you were there standing at your desk, stuck in that same position. Jodi, you would know this more than anybody, how our body can rebel from this stuckness and this inflexibility, this lack of mobility, and also our brains and how they are designed to function at our best when we are moving. Wendy Suzuki, the leading neuroscientist at NYU, did this incredible TED Talk where she said the most transformative thing you can do for your brain is exercise. And that's because of all the incredible things that happen in our brain when we move. We release BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like fertilizer for our brain. When we go for the 1-minute walk every half an hour, we regulate our blood sugar levels. We get an improved mood. We reduce fatigue. That's a great study by Columbia University. There's so much research out there that is telling us that it is okay. And in fact, it's so good for us to break up this exercise that we're told we need to be doing, say the 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise each week, that it's okay to break this down into bite-sized chunks. We're still going to get the same benefit. So if you're there thinking, well, I don't have that hour to exercise today, so I'm not going to be able to do it, research backs up what I am saying to you, that find little moments in your day to get physically active in some kind of way. Your body doesn't care if it's not at that particular gym class or you're not wearing that particular fancy activewear. Your body, your brain just want you to move. So find little ways to break up your day with some intentional physical activity. And if you're someone who's listening to this and go, well, I move all day, actually, how are you moving your body? Is it in a way that you are taking care of it? Maybe you need to break up your day with some stretches. If you are sitting down all day, maybe you need to break up your day with a few stand up and sit down. This is what our body, our brain needs, and also for our energy as well, which is something I'm really passionate about.
Yes, and you're filled with it every time I see you online, or you are, and it's energized with Lizzie, and it's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because often people will think, but I feel tired, I've been working, I feel depleted, I need to sit. Whereas we know from experience, and I really invite you, if that's kind of the thinking that you've had, just be curious, and when you're feeling that way, instead of reaching for that extra coffee, get up and do a little something. And I'm going to ask you, Lizzie, to share next. What for listeners who are thinking, yeah, okay, I understand it's really important, and I know that I can start small, and that little bits often are going to make a difference. What are some of the things that people can do? You've already mentioned pliés in the kitchen. So for the dancers listening, you're gonna love that. I was a wannabe dancer. It didn't last long as a kid. I was much better on the netball court. And I had a teacher actually, Lizzie. I'm just going to share this with you. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast. I had these shoes that they're my most beloved ballet shoes, but they had kind of like sort of almost like glittery sort of things on them, and they scraped a little on the floor, and she did not like it. She also didn't like the weight at which I landed on my feet. I think elephant was a word she used at some stage. So talk about putting a kid off being active. Anyway, I'll let that one go finally, I think at 49. So you've talked about push-ups on the bench, doing a few squats, and talk to us so that there is some lots of lovely alternatives for people to think about, so they can find something that feels like a good fit for them. And also, just as a little side note, that if somebody feels like they might be a bit embarrassed to maybe do something in the workplace, I know you've got some ideas for that as well.
The first part of this is, I think moving for your mood is such a great thing to remember. So I remember so clearly when my girls were little, and I was feeling this anger like I had never experienced. It would rise in me. And when I went and talked to a psychologist, she talked to me about how what I was doing is I was pushing these emotions down, and then I would just blow up. So rather than doing that push down, acknowledging these emotions, let them rise up, they have their natural peak, and then they can start to fall, and that's a good time to take action. And so I thought, okay, I've been doing these little moves at my kitchen bench. I could start applying this philosophy with movement. And so I remember one night, the girls just wouldn't go to bed. They just kept, crying out and everything. And so I went down to the kitchen. I was so angry. And so what I started doing is some punching out to the front, as just like shadow boxing, punch one arm after the other. And I felt all this emotion just, rise in me, this anger. But then this incredible thing happened. I watched it, I peaked, and then I started to feel like it was coming down a little bit. And I couldn't believe it, how this movement, this exercise that I was doing had such a great impact on the way that I was feeling. So think about in your day when those strong emotions arise, even those emotions of feeling really happy and joyful. How can you use movement in those moments to turn on a song and to have a dance? If you're feeling not very strong, if you need that boost of confidence, hands on the kitchen bench or on the wall, and do 10 push-ups with some really nice intentional breaths to find that feeling of strength and empowerment inside of you. If you're starting to fall asleep and yawn, that's the sign that your body is craving some energy. We want to get that oxygen and that blood flow happening. So that's a beautiful sign to just get up, have a little walk on the spot or walk around the block, whatever you can do. There are moments that you can take to really help the way that you feel. There's a study by Stanford University that shows, compared to sitting, walking, it doesn't have to be outside, up and down some stairs on the spot, walking increases creative output by 60%, 60. And those creative juices continue to flow after you sat back down. So if you're there wanting to come up with a good idea, really get into some project, then you're on the phone, take a little walk on the spot, stand up, have a stretch, And yes, if you are feeling there is no way I'm going to be doing any of that in front of my colleagues, there are some sneaky chair size exercises that I popped in the book because I love doing these myself. I'm often doing them when I'm on a virtual meeting with somebody that they don't even know that I'm moving. If I do a really good nod of my head, like I'm saying, yes, that's really interesting. I'm moving my neck out of that same stuck position. A shake of my head, no. Giving my eyes a chance to look away from the screen. A shrug of my shoulders. Imagine I've dropped some pens on the ground. I'm just a pen on the ground, just going to go down and pick it up and pick up the other one. Someone's called out behind me. Just take a little look behind and the other way. It's not necessarily about the sitting or the standing. What this is about is movement, is taking care of our bodies, our brains, and our spirits. So using these little moments of movement, or micro moves, as I like to call them, as a way to take care of yourself, whatever it is that you need, because we're also in such individual situations. Finding little ways to move, and remember that we've got to trust in the small little steps that we take. And Jodi, I know you are such a believer in this small steps thing.
Yes, I am. And, you know, when I talk about anxiety, I've been running an online program around school-related anxiety. So we've had week 3 and we've got another week next week. So when this goes to air, of course, that will all be finished. But one of the things that is really important when it comes to doing anything that's challenging is breaking it down and starting really small, breaking it right down. And when it comes to the way you talk about movement, it's really achievable. And that's the whole point, isn't it? It's not running a marathon. It's not even running 5K. It's not running, actually. And it could be as much as, and I love that cheeky, I just dropped my pen. I'm very clumsy today. I just dropped my And this idea that it's interesting, isn't it, that in a workplace people might feel a little bit embarrassed about moving in a way that might draw attention. But I would invite you, if you are worrying about that, to think about maybe just look, we do care so much about what people think of us. And as I approach my sixth decade, isn't it, when I turn 50? Oh, goodness. I wish I didn't say that now. Anyway, I care less. You know, I obviously care very much about people, but I just don't seem to have the time to focus and worry about what other people think. But I think people think about us a whole lot less than we think they do, for a start. Everyone's sort of focused more on themselves. And I'd invite you to consider letting your workplace know, or letting your colleagues around you know, hey, I'm going to be doing some funky things that you might like to join me in, or you might just like to have a little giggle. I'm not really too fussed, but I'm just letting you know I'm going to move a lot more. And sometimes when we just kind of totally own it, I think that confidence can go a long way. And then you don't have to sort of worry about trying to do it in a way that other people can't notice. But some people will still need to do that. So it's fantastic. And in the book, you've got so many alternatives. And it doesn't really matter where people start. It's just doing something, isn't it?
It is. And you know what's so incredible about that moment, if you're there with your colleagues or in front of your family or friend or a stranger, that moment that you decide you're just going to stand up, or have a quick little roll back of your shoulders, sit back down, that person next to you goes, oh gosh, they're taking this little moment to take care of themselves. Yes, they might think, gosh, that's a bit odd. I've never seen them do that before, but that's amazing that they've done that. And you, having stood up, rolled your shoulders back, sat back down, have now given that person next to you permission to do the same. You have given them this gift. I remember when I was out walking one day and I saw someone doing some push-ups at the park bench, and I thought, you know what? Thank you so much. That is such a gift for me and for everyone else passing by. Some people might be too embarrassed to do that, but she wasn't. Because now I see the next park bench and I started doing some push-ups. I had a few people walking past me, and maybe they might start doing those push-ups at the park bench. And the same thing can happen in the workplace. And I see this all the time. Energy, this taking care of yourself, a little moment for you, this is infectious, and it creates this incredible ripple effect around a company, an organization, even a family.
And it can become an ethos. And no doubt this is the work that you do with organizations, that if, when I talk, because I talk so much in schools, I'll say to teachers, if I were back in the classroom, these are the sorts of things I would be saying to create this beautiful warmth and welcoming environment so kids feel safe. These are the sorts of ways I would cope out loud so that I'm normalizing human emotions and struggle and challenge and coping strategies and things like that. And for any leaders listening in a workplace, and even if you're not a leader, you can be a leader. You could say, hey, how about when we start a meeting, or when we have our meetings, we might go in the boardroom, but let's stand up for it, or a walk and talk, or just trying to find ways in our workplaces, because it's, like you say, that ripple effect, I think, is just incredibly powerful, and then it's self-fulfilling because of the innate feelings of energy and also calm, and just the change and the mood change that comes with it, that it becomes quite intrinsically motivating. But if it's an ethos, if it's just the way of work for workplaces, then it can make quite a difference, and would make going to work a whole lot more not only productive from a workplace point of view, but just enjoyable for an employee. And the thing is, we have these bodies, and we've got to look after them. We only get the one. And if we don't, there's this idea that if we don't look after it now and take time, a little bit of time regularly now, there'll come a time when our body won't do what we need or want it to do anymore, or we're forced to take a whole lot of time to really look after ourselves. And so how do you inspire people who are really reticent, Lizzie? Because you're preaching to the converted when you're talking to me. Totally. So how do you inspire the skeptics, the cynics that are thinking, oh, gosh, I just don't know how I could make myself do it? Or, what are some of the things that you say to people who are sort of not on board with us yet?
Well, imagine if you had a job and you walked up on stage to talk to people, and they knew what you were going to get them to do, and you hear this in the audience. Oh,
Speaking from experience, are you, Lizzie?
Yes. Because a lot of people, there's a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of people, a lot of us, myself included sometimes. It's the last thing I feel like doing sometimes is getting moving. It's crazy. We've got this thing in us that needs to conserve energy or doesn't want to move, and we get so stuck. And so it's quite an incredible experience for me, being someone who gets people moving for a living, to see how quickly those groans turn into people smiling.
Yes.
People having a bit of a laugh together, looking around, getting into it, and then ending with, thank you so much. I did not realize how much I needed that. The less we move, the less we realize how much we actually really need it. And when we start to do it, and even though so many of us don't want to do it, I have lots of companies that do movement on their meetings. That's part of what they do now. They'll play one of my 2-minute moves. And of course, there's people who are reluctant to do it and don't really want to do it. And I think that's okay. There's so many things we do in our life that we don't really want to do. You might not have really wanted to get out of bed this morning or brush your teeth, but we still do it. So yes. My feeling is, even myself, and I say, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to take this break. Well, that's okay. We're going to do it anyway, because it's going to feel really good at the end, and that's what everyone discovers. And when I think about my future self, looking back in, say 10 years time, looking back and thinking about all these little moments that I took to get my body moving, to take care of myself physically and mentally, how happy that future self is going to be about the decisions that I made. It's so much bigger than just me right here, right now. And I think what I also hear from people that it's really inspiring is that this becomes bigger than just them in their work day, even bigger than communicating with their colleagues and working better, feeling more productive, energized and happier at work. It's this ripple effect that then happens with the people in their life outside of their work, and how more present they are, how feeling in a better mood. This whole thing, when you put your own oxygen mask on first before assisting others, what happens? And I experienced this myself so strongly when, quite a few months after I'd started doing that little couple of movements at my kitchen bench, and I was there and I had my little toddler Stella and my baby Ruby.
Yes.
And I was holding on to both of them, and we started dancing, and I hadn't danced for ages. I just couldn't get myself to do it. I'd make some excuse up where, if Stella asked me to dance, and this time I was there, we had a song on, and I looked to one side and saw Stella, and I looked to the other side of me, right up there holding him. I saw this little baby Ruby, and I looked them in their eyes, and I felt like I hadn't been there with them for so long, but here I was in this moment looking them in their eyes, and I felt like I was back. I was present. And what more precious thing could I ask for than that? And that was because of all the little small steps that I was taking and the ripple effect that comes from that.
Oh, I love that and I remember reading about that in the book, and that idea of being present and for us all to find it's our North Star. What's our why? That, like you say, there are things that we do in our lives that are, we have broccoli at dinner, and, I actually really love my veggies. So, and a lot of people I know do, but a lot of people don't, and they eat them because they know I need the nutrition. I need the nutrients. I need to have a variety of nutrients in my diet, and fiber and all of those sorts of things. And so when we look at our day, there are a lot of things we have to do that we don't have a choice over. There are a lot of things we choose to do because we know that it's good for us. And I really encourage you listening to think about exactly what Lizzie said when she said about this future self. And it's funny, on Instagram last week I saw a post where somebody said, is there a little something you could do every day so that in a year's time you've started sort of from ground zero? Where might you be in 12 months? Whether that's like learning to sketch, or whether or not that's learning to do a handstand again. The beauty of time is that the time is going to pass anyway, and we're so good at being comfortable, aren't we? We love comfort, and you and I both know Paul Taylor, who wrote Death by Comfort, and Paul was a guest on the podcast as well. And the comfort might feel like it's serving us in the moment, but when we can take a moment to step back and sort of think about it, yes, we need comfort. Yes, we need relaxation. Absolutely, we're not saying that. But there's so much more to life, and that you'll tap into that by starting to do a little something with your body, with your movement on a regular basis, because it just changes, like you said, it not only changes sort of the state of your health, but it changes the way you think, and it changes your perspective. Nobody's ever disappointed they went and did an exercise class when they leave. I mean, we can get there and go, oh my goodness me, how am I going to get through this today? But the rewards come, and then that feeling is so inspiring and just so brilliant that you want more of it. And so start small, and think about the way that it can have that ripple effect into your own life too, like you were saying, Lizzie, about the connection with your kids, because you're more calm, you're more centered, and not only that, the role modeling that you're doing as well. Can you talk to us a bit about the idea of what a parent does, and how that a parent moves and their exercise kind of habits, and what sort of a difference that can make for their children?
I've really seen this in my own life, actually. That little baby of mine at that time is now 15 years old. And I see her now, if she is feeling fatigued or starting to feel a bit angry or frustrated, she pops on her sneakers and she goes out for a walk or a run. And the difference between me saying to a teenager, you need to go out and have a walk and a run, and because it's going to make you feel really good, compared to me putting on my sneakers and saying to her over all these years, I'm just going to head on out because I'm just feeling like, I've just got all this stuff in me. I'm feeling really stuck and stressed out. I've just got to go and move this out.
Yeah.
And then walking back in the door and modeling that behavior. I probably, I might not be skipping back in through the door, but maybe I'm feeling a little bit better. When I'm there on my computer, when we're all up working together and they're studying really hard, when I am there standing up, having a stretch, having a quick little walk on the spot, whatever I'm doing there, it's breaking up these long hours of me sitting there working when they're studying as well with a little bit of movement. How much more powerful is that than me trying to say to them, hey, have a break, have a posture checkup. You got to move. They just watch me do it. Yeah. And I think that for kids, that is such a great way for them to be influenced. And in fact, there's some great studies that back that up as well.
There absolutely are. It's what we do that influences them so much more than what we say, especially like you. I've got a 15 and a 13-year-old, so we must have kids the same age. And so I mean, it's never too late. It's never too late. So, Lizzie, how do you encourage, or what do you say to people who feel like, I just get so engrossed in what I'm doing, I'm going to forget? Like, what kind of reminders can people use? Are there some good apps, or do you have some, I'm sure you do, have some great ideas for how people can kind of get some routine in terms of breaking up their day?
So alerts are great if you don't just then press stop and don't do anything.
like the snooze button on my alarm this morning.
Yes. So if you are someone who thinks what would work for you is if you're sitting down at your desk, for example, and you know you're going to have a big long session, setting a little timer to go off after 30 or 60 minutes or something, don't have it there at your desk. If you can help it, have that phone or that timer somewhere else that you actually have to get up and turn it off. So at least then you're having a little walk. You can have that timer so it says something like stretch time, reach up to the sky, whatever it is that you want to be doing there and then at that time. If alerts are not so much your thing, if they go off and you just tend to ignore them, you also could be in the middle of something as well, so it can be hard to do it. One of my favorite cues is to actually do the BJ Fogg habit stacking.
Yeah.
Look at what you have that you're doing there in your day, something that you do. For example, it might be you take sips of water from your water bottle. You might be getting on a lot of virtual meetings, so you press join that meeting, and that gives you just a few little moments there. Sending emails, going to the kitchen, making a cup of tea, whatever it is. Pick one of those things and attach some kind of movement to it. For example, if you take a sip of water, stand up, sit down once, 10 times, it doesn't matter. Obviously, flick the switch on the kettle is that perfect opportunity to do those push-ups. If you are joining that virtual meeting and you don't have your camera on yet or whatever, you might roll down towards your toes or roll back up, or just take a moment to turn your head from side to side. Pick one little habit stacking moment and commit to that. And every time that you do something like that, you want to celebrate it. Yes. So often we celebrate the big things. We cross the finish line in the race, or we get this huge job, or the big things, and we don't celebrate the small little things. So every time that you do something for yourself, even if it's just a circle of your wrists one way or the other, pick up the pen when you're sitting down, remember to do something like this. Say to yourself, yes, I did that for me. A little bit of what about a high five where you can see yourself in your computer screen? Some kind of action, a fist pump, some little subtle thing, or it's something internally you say to yourself so that you get that closing of the habit loop, which is that reward.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I was thinking about at CrossFit this morning, my coach and I, because all of our kids just went back to school, and we sort of went, yeah, like the old, was it Leighton Hewitt, kind of.
Yes.
And so I really love this so much because it's so important because we can be so hard on ourselves, can't we? We can be so, and like you said, like when you were saying that you'd hop into bed and you'd be thinking of all the things you didn't get done, or you didn't do the way you'd hoped, or that you felt that you did, poorly, versus having a way of celebrating what we are doing for ourselves, and really again just affirming for listeners that the little bits make a profound difference. They really, really do. And so one of the things that I'd love to add to that, and I think you wrote about this too, was what works for a lot of people is simply ticking something off on a little whiteboard or something, so that actually, we love a to-do list. And I don't know about you, but I add extra things on my to-do list so I can tick them off. I sat down at my computer this morning and my EA Marg had done something for me, and I'm like, oh, ticking that off my list too. So we get a bit of a kick from that. But yeah, I think it's really important what you've just said, to kind of celebrate and give ourselves a little pat on the back. And and then that too, it just will spur us to keep going and to do a little bit again. And so, Lizzie, your work is just so incredible, and we're coming sort of to the end of our time. So, Lizzie, could you please tell us how people can see some of the work that you're doing, these videos that you've been talking about? Where can they find your incredible new book? And congratulations on your book. It's just absolutely fantastic. So listeners, you can get a copy of that in your hand, and I'd really encourage you to follow Lizzie on social media as well. She's so inspiring, and you just got to look for the yellow and you'll find her. Tell us about how people can work with you and connect with you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jodi. The Active Workday Advantage is the new book, and it's great to hear the work that you're doing in the education space, because that's what actually inspired me to write this book. When my daughter came home and she was just so annoyed the fact that at school we just sit all day and there's no breaks, and why does it have to be this way? And so I told her about this book that I was writing. So I can't wait to get this into your hands. So you can find that online, head into your local bookstore. And I go into workplaces and help them create active workplaces and help them see how possible it is to get more physical activity in their day, break up long hours of sitting. And I do that through my keynotes and workshops and all the 2-minute move videos, which you can also find online as well. I'm Energized with Lizzie, and that's Energized with a Z on Instagram, and absolutely love to connect with everybody there. Send me in what it is that you're struggling with when it comes to movement, any requests that you have for some little exercises, whether that's when you're brushing your teeth or at work. I always love to create videos for you. So I can't wait to connect with you there. And thank you so much for taking this time to be with me. And
Lizzie,
Jodi.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And I love that invitation that you've just shared. Please take Lizzie up on that, because the beauty of being able to respond in a way to somebody who said, you might be listening, you might be thinking, hey, I'm injured, or I've got a disability that really restricts the way I can do certain exercises. And so, yeah, tap into the brain's trust here. So much of what Lizzie shares is not only about the other health benefits we've discussed, but about just mobility, so that as we grow old, we can do all the things we want to do. So, Lizzie, you're awesome. I just love you and your work, and I can't wait to celebrate with you at your book launch. So I actually get to give you a hug and celebrate with you in person. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you, Jodi. We celebrate the big wins and the small wins, and I'm so, so grateful for you and all that you do. And listener, isn't this incredible that we have this resource, this podcast that we can listen to and get all this incredible inspiration and wisdom? And so, so grateful for you, Jodi, for that.
Oh, thank you. you. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Oh, I'm always so grateful and just love that you connect with me and with my guests to let us know how the podcast's going. And I'll extend the invitation too. If there's something you want me to podcast about, to do an episode about, please continue to write in. So get moving. Do something, start small, do something, and let us know. And if you're posting it on Insta to sort of rally the troops, then make sure that you tag Lizzie and me as well. So take care, and I cannot wait to be back with you for another episode next Wednesday. Okay, see ya. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.